This manga is bloody daft, and I kind of love it. It's filled to brim with unfunny, tasteless piss jokes, which makes me laugh sometimes when ridiculous enough. It poses some garbage ideas about masculinity, and its use of fine art references is brilliant. Its presentation of slice of life tropes experienced by sculptures and paintings has undoubtable comedic effect, and yet the execution can be sometimes so obvious that the art isn't enough to distract me from it. Overall, what can I say but good thought! Teenage Renaissance David was created by Yushin Kuraki and published in Weekly Shonen Jump on September 15, 2018, as a jumpstart alongside I'm From Japan, and it reached the end of its run on May 26, 2019. It was available worldwide for free through Manga Plus. It tells the story of David, an ordinary Japanese high school student who just happens to look exactly like Michelangelo's David statue. The series is filled to brim with references to fine art with pieces like Mona Lisa, Mannequin Piss, or Venus of Venus of Milo, being David's classmates in Louvre High School. Alright then, let's get right to discussing what it's all about. Part 1. Referential Comedy. Very much like its peer, I'm From Japan. David is a gag manga, genre-wise, but with strong elements of slice of life, high school hijinks. Something along the lines of School Rumble, but with art references. Oh, and piss jokes, yeah. Well, actually, that wouldn't be fair. Whereas School Rumble was quite interested in subverting expectations regarding high school romance manga tropes, Teenage Renaissance David mostly plays them straight. Instead, what becomes the source of humour is the presence of the works of art in the stereotypical context. Take the opening gag, for instance, where David, being the scumbag that he is, tries to pick up girls' skirts, then is interrupted by a classmate and the girls disappear, causing him to become frustrated. On its own, it's hardly the pinnacle of wit, but what makes it potentially funny is that it's a bloody statue doing it, and that it's yelling the Italian word for cock, which curiously enough sounds very similar to the Japanese word for shit. Speaking of which, it's worth noting how much of a melting pot the character of David really is. The origin of the character itself is Hebrew. While being Michelangelo's son in universe, he appears to be Italian. He attends the Louvre High School, which you would think is in France, but it all appears to take place in Japan. A similar character in this regard is Goliath, David's rival. Obviously another biblical figure from the first book of Samuel. He is Philistine in origin, but what's up with the Viking helmets? Yeah, I know it's a fake Viking helmet, they didn't really wear those kind of things, but the point still stands. From a quick Google search, I don't think a horned helmet was in any way part of Philistine armor. Okay, then again, I don't suppose that Lami, Goliath's gender-bent sibling here, would have worn Bismarck's helmet, so this might not be a very useful criticism. I suppose that's why I thought it was worth noting, was because of my usual approach to referential comedy. What I'd like to have seen from David was an exploration of the references as characters in a high school setting, in his high school slice of life setting, as opposed to character archetypes drawn as famous works of art. Other than being attractive, the character of Venus of Venus of Milo, boils down to her being kind and eating a lot, which neither has a lot to do with Aphrodite. I mean, they're a decent combo of character traits, but they don't play well with the reference. For Christ's sake, she's even presented as innocent, not lustful in any way. That's like the opposite of what Venus is supposed to be. You might think that, well, yeah, that's the point. Maybe the contrast is some character progression material. Maybe the manga is gonna show how she became more lewd, but they don't do so in the 35 chapters that they have, at least. Some other characters fall into the same category. In chapter 6, for instance, we find out that David's mother is Athena. You know, famously neither a mother nor a wife Athena. the manga never draws attention to that contrast. She's just there. In another chapter, Lami, Goliath's sister, is revealed to be the most academically gifted member of the group, which the other characters appeared to be surprised by. The joke is somewhat undercut by the fact that Lami wasn't precisely specified to be daft in the Bible. In fact, he was a non-entity, not really depicted in art in general. But perhaps the most wasted reference of all is... Bloody Kobata! No, it's David himself. His underdog status as a nobody at first is shared with the king of Israel and Judea he is based on, but that's about it. He lacks the ingenuity and tactical skills that allowed the biblical David to win against Goliath with a makeshift slingshot. He seems to get out of most tricky situations through dumb luck or sheer force of will, the latter powered by his feelings for the girl he loves, explicitly explained by Mannequin Piss when he rescues Venus and the others from a shark attack. Needless to say, none of this has a lot to do with who the statue was supposed to represent. There could well be an arc in which David could have become the student body council president in reference to his counterpart becoming a king, but no point in that. He's far too removed from the archetype then. You know what? Screw it. With all these characteristics, Isama Mikmo would be a better David than David himself is. Interestingly enough, with it being David, a harem ending would have made more sense than what we got. King David quite literally had a harem. Okay, let's move on. Part 2. The gendered art style. Regardless of how much I wish it could have done more with its art references, I think the way the manga used them as gags was done well enough. It was the right choice not to make each reference a new character, but put already existing characters in different poses depending on the gag. Another aspect is that both David and Venus are introduced with exactly the same pose, but with different outfits every chapter, which is incredibly funny. It's also beautifully drawn, so the art style itself is something I have no qualms with. Or so you would think. I couldn't help but notice there is a bit of a double standard in what the characters are allowed to look like depending on the gender. You have David, Mannequin Piss, and Mr. Bocaver Laderita, who all look like their fine art counterparts. And then you have Venus of Venus of Milo, and Mona Lisa, who look like, well, your ordinary anime waifus, and need to look conventionally attractive while men are allowed to look goofy. This is very much part of a bigger problem that is not limited to David. In fact, One Piece, which I always will love, has a very similar problem. Now, Wensleydale, you could say. In the examples you just gave, the men were all statues and the women were all referenced paintings. Perhaps this is where the difference lies. Well, true, but then there's Lady Liberty, who is drawn the same way, with the same kind of liberty. And then there is Leda and the Swan, David's little sister. Leda is a sister, not the Swan. Yeah. Regardless, there is a definite effort to keep the female characters normal looking, and it doesn't seem to be incidental. One slight exception to that rule is perhaps Mona Lisa, whose face gets tense from time to time, and then she closely resembles the painting she's based on. But the gag disappears rather quickly, and it's still pretty cowardly that she can't look like that all the time, or that the male characters, well, other than Na, can avoid being the eye candy. Even so, I still have to admit that David's artistic references both make me laugh and remind me of Terry Gilliam's animation. In fact, this manga seems to have an equal number of things I like and don't care for. I like the referential comedy, I don't like the toilet humor. I like the character dynamic, I don't like the character inconsistencies, like the manga not being able to decide whether Mona is good at PE or not. I like the heartwarming, funny lines like, the warmth of our piss is the warmth of our friendship. But the wish fulfillment fantasy of an average male teenager solving every conflict and being the center of attention rubs me the wrong way. But what I dislike most of all is Part 3, Incest. Don't worry, this will be a short one. Oh dear, oh dear, oh dear. I can't understand the little sister fantasy trope, and I feel like if I weren't an only child, I would understand it even less. This bloody manga felt the need to have two such characters. Lami, who has a crush on her brother, Goliath, and wants to support and be with him in the future, as well as Lida, who has a crush on David. It is especially icky with David, with whom the audience is meant to identify the most, and in whose case it already feels like he's entitled to the feelings of every girl he meets. But since framing supersedes text, the problem that I have with Lida and Lami, with the feelings, in fact, aren't about them existing, but how they're framed. When Lami mentions them for the first time, it is framed as a heartwarming moment, as all of the characters think it's very cute of her to say she wants to be with her brother. This general acceptance stands in contrast with, let's say, We Never Learn, where Mizuki exists as an archetype like that, but her brother complex is very out of focus and exists as the butt of the joke more than anything else. It is framed as strange rather than heartwarming, which, I wish it could be in this manga. Part 4. The Warmth of Our Piss. Yeah, that's what we're going with. Perhaps from my monologue thus far, one could infer that I don't like the manga, but nothing could be further from the truth. I thought it was a very good read, and I'm sad to see it's cancelled. I only saw problems with it that prevented it from reaching greater heights. To give a more enthusiastic perspective on Teenage Renaissance David, I invited VlordGTZ from the Drowning in Manga podcast. VLord, you're very passionate about the series. What do you think it has to offer apart from its great comedy and art references? What makes Teenage Renaissance David so special?
So while one of Teenage Renaissance David's most apparent qualities is its humor, I'd argue that there's so much more to it than that. For one thing, the cast is simply fantastic. Whether it's the ridiculously stoic behavior of Anakin Piss, the shy Mona Lisa, each character feels relatable in their own right. You can look no further than our main character David. Despite his statue-like appearance, David is just like any other high school kid. He wants to fit in at school, have fun with his friends, and he wants to confess to the girl that he likes. While Teenage Renaissance David's insane comedy may break our sense of realism, the characters themselves still feel human at their core, and you genuinely want them to be happy. I think the moment where this is best highlighted is in the final few chapters, actually, where we see David struggling with losing his friend, Mannequin Piss. Losing touch with a friend is an incredibly relatable feeling that many people have had to suffer through, and you really feel the emotions that are weighing on David during this moment. The biggest thing that I took away from Teenage Renaissance David was embracing our own youth, the ups and the downs, the predictable and the unpredictable. No matter what ridiculous obstacles David faced, he did it with open arms, not losing sight of his pursuit for Venus's heart. And that's why I love the series so much.
Thank you very much for your perspective, VLord. As I said, overall I quite enjoyed Teenage Renaissance David, but I must admit that it's not my favourite series with naked stone statues in it, given that we have Dr. Stone in the lineup. Come to think of it, piss was also an important element of the series at one point, eh? What is also piss is the YouTube algorithm, the dark abyss of sorrows and woes from which videos like these never resurface. To help me navigate it, you can subscribe if you haven't already, like the video or share it on social media. You should also follow my guest VLord at VlordGTZ on Twitter. At Drowning in Manga is where his podcast is. And you can also find it on allcomic.com, Himalaya, Apple Podcasts, Player FM. I'm probably forgetting something, but the links are in the description below. If you'd like to help me keep the show going, you can also consider supporting me on Patreon. In return for rewards such as putting your name in the credits, getting a World Trigger avatar, getting access to exclusive video content, or participating in our Q&A sessions at the end of the video. What do you think about Teenage Renaissance David? Which reference was your favorite? And what do you want me to talk about next? Your choices are... Okay, this is not a fair competition, but The End of Food Wars or Yui Kamio Let's Loose. You probably know the former as the Foodgasm manga, while the latter is a romantic comedy about a girl with a double personality. So let me know in the comments and take care.